1, 2, 3. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. So pretty. Oh.
Welcome, ladies, to Recipe for Change, the Black maternal health and motherhood episode.
These mangoes, though, I mean, talk about Mother Nature just doing what she does. She birthed these mangoes and gave them to us.
I did midwife, doula, I went natural, and that was different from what my mom had done. So even making those choices was different.
If you look at me and you don't see your sister, or your daughter, or your mother, or your best friend, then you don't get to touch me. Ooh, Chef Nyesha.
Hey, girl, hey, pleasure. Oh, just such an honor to meet you.
Thank you for being here
Of
for this
course.
episode of Recipe for Change.
My pleasure, absolutely.
It smells really good.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like that's the first layer of enjoying the flavor. I wanted to share with you the inspiration of the meal today.
Yes.
As a Southern California native, I draw from a lot of my heritage, also the beautiful, robust terroir of California and Southern California in particular. So I've made some very nutritious and delicious steamed black rice. It's just so gorgeous. We've also done some braised mushrooms, a little braised beef, and this really fun sweet potato noodle dish.
That's what that is.
Yes, and mangoes are in season right now, so we're gonna have a beautiful mango and tapioca pudding just for dessert.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So who's coming to dinner?
For this Black maternal health discussion, we are going to have actress Kyla Pratt joining us, incredible singer Melanie Fiona, Kimberly Durdin, a midwife and doula, and Lizzy Mathis,
Wow.
who is a TV personality and content creator. So it should be a really good conversation. And you, of course.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm looking forward to
Yes.
this. I am so here for the conversation. I'm sure I'm gonna learn a lot and also impart the knowledge that I've gathered on my journey.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll all learn from each other.
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to make sure that the table is gorgeous.
Amazing.
See you out there, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this looks breathtaking.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's just the
It's time. Oh, yeah, this is us. There's no other seating. It's so pretty.
What a day.
Welcome, ladies, to Recipe for Change, the Black maternal health and motherhood episode. I'm so excited to get started. This is our cup of scrolls.
Couple of scrolls.
Yes. So we'll go around the table and just pick a scroll, and this will kind of help us get our conversation going.
Okay. Any
Tatyana
scroll?
just held it.
I think it's just any scroll. I know.
All
Let
right.
the scroll find you.
Okay. Let the scroll choose you.
All right. Question number 1.
Suspense.
What is the most annoying, unsolicited advice someone gave you when finding out you were becoming a mother?
Ooh, wow.
People don't understand sometimes the words that are coming out of their mouths.
That's very true.
Sometimes,
That's
yeah.
very true. It was advice that was given when I became pregnant, but I didn't know how annoying it was until I became a mom.
Right.
So you take it in when you're pregnant, but then when I became a mom, I was like, that was some annoying advice.
Like, why would they
Why
say that
would
to
you
you?
say that?
Say anything.
And it was sleep when the baby sleeps. The reason why I say it's annoying is because it's so untrue, for me at least. It was
Yeah.
very untrue. I could not sleep when the baby slept because there was so much to do, because when the baby's
I
up,
never slept.
your hands
Yeah.
are so full and there's so much to take care of when the baby actually sleeps.
Yes.
So after
Yes.
becoming a mom, I was like, why would you tell me that?
I definitely, as a birth worker, as a midwife, I've been a doula before, that is the advice I give to my moms postpartum. But guess what it's really about?
What?
It's about leaning into asking for help.
There you
And
go.
you're supposed to be
I like
sleeping
that
when the
advice.
baby
We don't
sleeps.
know how
I
to
like
do
that.
that.
You don't know how to do it, so
And
that's why we're having this
we don't know how to do that.
conversation.
That's right.
We don't know how to do that.
I wanted to breastfeed up to 2 years or more, you know, and nobody in my family had done that before. And I got so many comments about, you still breastfeeding that baby?
Yes.
You know, you don't have to work so hard. Just put a little formula in. I more needed somebody to say, good job.
Great job.
You know, honestly, to piggyback
off of that, my mom didn't breastfeed my brother or I, and when I was so dedicated to wanting to breastfeed my son at the time, it was such a struggle in the beginning, and I was crying, and it was all of these things. And my mom actually did come to me, and she said, you know what, once we got past the hard stage, she said, good for you. She said, I didn't have anybody who encouraged me and gave me options. She's like, you wanted to do something, you educated yourself, and you stuck through it.
It wasn't like as I was becoming a mom, but it was before. And I remember being with a producer who I grew up with, who I'd known for so long. And somebody in the industry was having a kid, and they turned to me and they were like, "I'm become a mom."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? Like, oh no, don't do it, because that changes your whole thing, and you can't be sexy anymore, you can't be this, so just don't do it. And luckily, I'm the type of person, I don't like people telling me what to do. I just don't like it. So I'm gonna do it. I don't like it.
Chef, what is this story?
Yes, Chef.
Ladies,
Yes, Chef.
let me tell you. So I handpicked these vegetables from the farmer's market.
Wow.
Because, you know, I'm really all about intentionality. Before the food even hits the plate, what is the concept of the dish, and where are these ingredients coming from? So today for our first course, we have a little sort of a whimsical salad. I wanted to start off very light. So some beautifully shaped cucumber, as well as watermelon radish, some beautiful cara oranges that I feel give this incredible sort of floral note to it. There is a yuzu koshu vinaigrette. So yuzu koshu has some, we love yuzu, right? So we have the citrus dialogue happening with the peppery and the radish. So lots of love, lots of intentionality, just sort of stimulating the soul, the palate, getting ready for the next course.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
It's gorgeous.
Were you prepared for the emotional and physical changes of motherhood?
I mean, go hard.
I know.
Right off the top. No.
No, I don't think anybody can be prepared.
No. Everything about my pregnancy journey to my birth, none of it could have been what I expected. None of it. I was in the thick of my career. I got pregnant. I put on over 80 pounds by the end of my pregnancy. I was swollen. I looked like a different person. I couldn't stand. I couldn't wear shoes. I always had this vision. My mom had very easy labors. No, it's gonna be fine. And I'm very holistic and feel like a wild woman that could have just gone into the woods and had a baby, no problem. So many unforeseen things happened, but I think the thing that I gained from all of it was the message of surrender.
I did midwife, doula, I went natural, and that was different from what my mom had done. You know, so even making those choices was different. But I don't think you're ever prepared because it is the unknown. You have to be prepared in other ways because the unknown is the unknown. So you have to have a team.
Yes,
right?
and it feels like you can only prepare for change.
That's right.
And that's it.
That's right.
You don't know what the change is going to be.
That's
And
right.
the biggest fear is the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
That's right.
All of our
That's
fears
right.
are rooted in the unknown.
That's right.
And then to your point about surrender, I've learned that talking about allowing as opposed to surrender sometimes can really help us feel more in power and in control, because surrendering means that I'm gonna just surrender to anything that's happening, and in a sense it is, but if we kind of shift the wording a little bit, we can kind of feel a little bit into that power of allowing, right? I'm allowing this process to take place, right?
Yes.
And it kind of puts us back in the driver's seat, and I think that that is what's so challenging having a baby in these times. There's so much stress that's just kind of overlaid over everything we do, and it is affecting us. And then the points that you talked about with work and your career and all those things, let's remember that the whole idea of work as it was for maybe, let's say, our moms or our grandmoms, it was a male dom. Now we kind of grow up knowing like, I can do that too, but this professional world wasn't designed for us. That said, taking back our power, designing it for us. If you are a female founder of something, what do your work policy look like for your employees? Like, do you offer a generous leave? Do you? Right. We always have the power. And like, how can we tap in? How can we be the change? It's up to us. It's not going to be done for us, and we have to be the voice of our experience.
That's right.
I wasn't prepared for the emotional change.
Interesting.
I was very young, and so I wasn't like the physical part of it. I was like, oh, just get back in the gym. Like, and I had the opposite. Like, I was super like, what nutrients do I need? And I just want to make sure the baby has this, and very physical. But the emotional part of it, like, I've always considered myself as like, I'm a gangster. I can handle whatever.
Right.
But when it came to the idea of possibly messing someone up, I was so afraid, and every little moment, and then like I had to make choices, and I'm like, wait, so I make the choices, and then this can possibly affect my child's entire life.
Right.
I wasn't ready for that. I was very secure in myself, very confident in myself, and then becoming a mom, I started questioning everything. And I was like, am I doing this right? Am I supposed to say this? I don't want to talk down. Ooh, let me read this. How do I feel like I don't want to, you know, treat my kid this way or do that? But now I understand why some things were done a certain way. So I need to do it that way. So I think just trying to hone in on just trusting my instincts and understanding that I got this. And no matter what, my babies are going to be fine.
This is a dish I would like to say is inspired by my Afro-Korean heritage.
Awesome.
So very California-esque, light, bright, vegetable forward. I'm a classically French-trained chef, so so it's like it's telling my culinary journey on one plate, right? What
This is your story.
It very much is. It very much is. So slow braised short rib, a little bit of red wine, some Asian pear. So we've taken the braising liquid and reduced that and sort of spooned that over the top. Under you have some very nutritious, delicious black rice that is so good for you.
Now, I have a question.
Please.
Why is black rice so nutritious for you?
Tons of vitamins.
Outside that it's just black, you know. Everything's black.
I mean, it's the starch content, you know, it's not just a simple carbohydrate.
Yeah.
It has a lot more nutrients, and so that's why I chose it. So I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, well, y'all talk. I'm going to be eating. I'll be back. Thank you so much.
Of course.
You know what? I am gonna kick off the next question.
Okay.
Yeah. Who was your biggest advocate during and after your pregnancy?
So, like me trying to think, because I had such a huge support system, but the first person who pops into my head is my mother.
Nice.
But I think it was mainly because of a lot of things that she wasn't able to experience with her pregnancies. She wanted to make sure that I was able to with mine.
Wow.
Even after.
Right.
And hey, you want to go to the gym? I got the baby. You know what I'm like, helping give me the time to feel like I can still have those moments for myself.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be too lost in
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, it was completely appreciated.
As you said, first person that came to mind for me was my mother, too. She is like a mom's mom. Well, she was the oldest of 7 kids. So it kind of was beat into her a little bit.
Yeah.
But she did really enjoy mothering. And when she met my dad, he was 15 years older than her. And he already had 2 kids. And she would always say to me that she didn't fall in love with him, that she fell in love with his kids. And she just wanted to nurture them. And now, actually, it's so cool because we're grandmothers together. I'm a grandmother, she's a great-grandmother. And we get to do that together. And like we said about relationships changing, like it's just been really awesome to be able to kind of like, we kind of grow together.
That's right.
You know?
First time going into it, my family lives away, so none of my family was close. So I actually found a doula for my first birth, and she was a huge advocate in that process, even through the hospital situation, everything. She was super helpful. I remember she called my son his name for the first time before he was even born. She said, okay, Cameron, and I was like, oh. So she saw me as this person already, this mother already, and she treated me as such and she spoke to me as such. And I will say this, and I want to give Kim her flowers, because my second time around when I got pregnant, I called Kim. And I said, Kim, I want to have a different experience. And she's like, well, girl, I can't take you because my schedule's full. But she said, but here's who you can call. And Kim walked me through my entire process, because I had had a C-section and I wanted a VBAC, I wanted a vaginal birth after cesarean. And so the practice that I was in, they mandated that they could not provide a VBAC for me.
Interesting.
And it wasn't the doctor's choice, it was just the practice that they were in. And so I called Kim and I was like, Kim, I don't know what to do. And she was like, here's where you start.
That's right.
And so I would like to say that I was my biggest advocate in my second journey to motherhood, because I did not stop until I found who I needed.
My biggest advocate, I think, with my first pregnancy was my husband, you know, because he was the one who I trusted. He was the one who I was like, I know you'll have my best interest at heart. If anything goes wrong, awry, if anything. I knew to do a birthing plan, but that's all I knew. And I was like, you have to look at the birthing plan. Just look at the birthing plan. And that was just like our biggest conversation. But there was many a times where he had to speak up in the room because he was like, this doesn't look right. This isn't normal. Oh, no, she shouldn't be doing that. Like he just intuition, just him saying, I know her, I know Lizzy, and she's not normal right now. But I think he was my biggest advocate for the first. And then the second, we knew, okay, a team needs to be assessed. Doula, midwife has to be in place because they go through so many births that they'll know the signs before we will if something's awry.
You know, talking about assembling our teams, and not everybody lives someplace. There are a lot of maternal care deserts in this country. There are a lot of places where finding that is like a needle in a haystack. And what then? Wow. How do you assemble that team? Is it family members? Is it friends? How do you find the resources that you need wherever you are?
I want to tap into also financial resources. Because we're sitting at a table in a beautiful place and we all happen to have financial resources as well. So it's not even just the fact that the desert of like birthing centers and all these resources, right? The desert of that. It's also some people don't have the means to put together a team, and then what do we do?
Yes,
absolutely. Remember that nothing new under the sun. Babies have been coming since the beginning of time. And there hasn't always been a system in place that we would recognize as a system, like the healthcare system as it is now, that was there to take care of people, right? So who did people tap into? Their families, their friends, trusted people who had experience in this area. You know, it's like someone who's had a lot of kids, someone who's a wise woman, a wise father, a wise person. I just want us to remember that there's so much available to us and we should not stop at like thinking, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the means, I don't know anybody. Find who's around in your area, and it does look different in different states and different places around this country and around the world. But at the end of the day, people are out there. Another thing I want to say is that for Black women, what I see happening is we're reclaiming our space as birth providers, birth care, birth workers, people who take care of the community, help pregnant folks, help people before they're pregnant, help people in their births, help people in the postpartum, et cetera, and we're reclaiming that space. This country was birthed on the backs of Black midwives. Let's not forget that. So that was the norm. As we started being brought over, they also brought over targeted midwives to come over. Because remember that the babies, the bodies was the cash, right? And so they needed midwives to be able to get these babies here safely as possible because they, unfortunately, were part of the way that this country gained its finances, right? On the bodies of these babies. So midwifery has existed in the world forever, ever. And then in this country, it became the work of Black women. I mean, even up until the 1950s, there were still thousands of midwives practicing in the South. I mean, something like 45,000 Black midwives still practicing in the South up to 1945. So I just met at a conference, Maxine Waters. And she was there talking about a Momnibus Act and the things that we need, the legislation we need to push through so that we can get more support from the government. But the point is that when I was there and I said that I was a midwife, and she kept smiling and she just kept looking at me. And then after the session was over, she came over to me and she says, I was born of a midwife. And she was from St. Louis, Missouri is where she was born. And she said, you know, we couldn't go to a hospital back then. We weren't allowed, our mothers weren't allowed to go to the hospital. So she says, I was born at home with a Black midwife. Now we think like, it's all right to go into the hospital. Like we have that, right? We have all this care, for better or for worse. But the point is that when we didn't have access to that, you see, we already had our own systems. I see that it's being reclaimed. I see so many beautiful Black women and men and people that are learning their history that hasn't been taught to us.
For our piece de resistance. Final course is a play off of the classic sort of sticky rice and mango vibe. I actually use tapioca pearls for this pudding, so it should be really light and easy to digest. Some lightly toasted almonds over top. These mangoes, though, I mean, talk about Mother Nature just doing what she does. I mean, she birthed these mangoes.
She did. She's doing it every day.
I mean, doing it.
Bring it back, Chef.
I hope you enjoy.
Thank
Wow.
you.
you. What has been your experience as a Black mother in our healthcare system? Wow, deep breaths, everyone.
I know.
Hot topic.
I had a great experience with my gynecologist. I had the same one since I was 18 years old.
Wow, good for
When
you.
he retired during the pandemic, I cried like a baby. For my second pregnancy, I went into labor early. And being in the hospital, and I told the nurse there that I was having contractions. And she looked at the machine and she said, "No, you weren't." And I said, "Yes, I am. I've done this before. Go get my doctor." And luckily, standing up for myself in that moment, my daughter is here now. Because she went to get my doctor. My doctor said, "Oh, you're 6 centimeters dilated. Now we have to do an emergency C-section."
Wow.
But because I was so small, it wasn't showing up on the machine. And in that moment, I didn't really recognize when people weren't listening to me because I was young, because I'm Black, and because I'm a woman. And that was the first time where I was really like, this, I'm not playing with you.
Right.
Go get my doctor.
You were dismissed.
I was dismissed.
Right.
And even if I was dismissed before that in my life, I don't really recognize stuff. I just let stuff, go away. But when it came to the safety of my child, I was easily like, "Ma'am, like keep your looks and keep your whatever you need to yourself. I got this."
Honestly, midwifery as we knew it was wiped out. And that's why we don't know anything about it. It was systematically wiped out for the OBGYN profession to come in. I just want to say that it's mainstream medicine, but it's not traditional care. It's traditional care is what once was and what we're trying to bring back. So when the OBs came in, and who do you think they were? Do you think they were Black women? They were
white men.
Time?
They were white
Right.
men.
And so this level of control over our Black bodies, over our bodies that gave birth, came in. We know about so many instances where women were getting hysterectomies and getting sterilized without their consent. All different Black and brown women, still to this day. And that's a part of controlling these bodies so that they don't make too many children now, because that can be seen as a problem. Now, I'm going to tell you that I know that not every OB or not every person that's in that field has that type of mindset, but that is how the profession started. And we know that the father of modern OBGYN gynecology performed experiments on enslaved Black women with James Marion Sims, with no anesthesia, and did over 40, 50 surgeries on Black women's bodies to perfect surgeries that are used today, perfect techniques.
Is that where also this notion of when Black women go into the hospital or their pain level, they always there's this.
And it's not just for women. It is still being taught that Black people can endure more pain because their skin is thicker. So, So the truth of the matter is, when we look at these big institutions and these places that teach doctors, not much has changed since its founding. And I'm happy to say, though, that I'm asked to speak at a lot of universities that teach medical students. The medical students, these new students that are going to be our future OBs, they want to know about reproductive justice. They want to know about community midwifery. They want to know because they're hearing it again through social media or whatever. They're picking it up and they're going to their instructors and saying, "I want to know about this." And so they'll have me come in, and then I get to say all the things that make me mad about the system and get all,
fired up.
Get fired up. And the students are like, and it's great. But I do want to plant that seed to them that they are the change makers. They're who are relying on the future. And it's students that are Black, brown, gay, straight. Getting a medical education is now open to whoever has the smarts, so to speak, to do that, right? But we have to tell them true stories. We have to let them know the history, because trust me, they're not learning that in their medical education.
My experience in this healthcare system when I became a mother was, it radicalized me. I don't play. And I experienced something that I don't want anyone to ever experience, that level of violence and all the micros and macro, all the aggressions, all of them happen.
Of course.
And if you look at me and you don't see your sister, or your daughter, or your mother, or your best friend, then you don't get to touch me or my children. And that's just how
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I roll now.
That's interesting because that you say that, because I had miscarried for my first pregnancy.
I'm sorry for your situation.
Thank you. It was shocking, right? Like you don't ever expect it. So when I miscarried, I felt like the OB that I had at the time, and up until this point, my healthcare experiences were fine. But when this happened, I didn't realize that the healthcare provider I had, my OBGYN or whatever, was not the right person for me. The way she handled it, the way she went about it, whatever it was, her emotions were rounded towards me, were insensitive and cold. And immediately I was like, oh, wow. Like, you just don't care. Like, you don't care about me as a woman and as a mother. Like, wow, it was just very transactional. And in that moment, I told myself, okay, I need to find someone who's going to look at me, right? Not as a number, as just another patient, or okay, come on, get in and out, but someone who's gonna see me. And through that, I found a Black OB/GYN, a woman who now talks to me for a good 4 to 5 minutes in the room. She'll be backing up all the patients. And she knows who I am, and as a woman, as a mother, and I think there's something to that, right? But I had to find someone who saw me.
The story I shared about the doctor that I had seen when I was on my journey, he literally was so data-driven that when he asked me my age and my ethnicity, my percentage of whether I was a good candidate for a VBAC changed when he put me in as Black.
VBAC calculator, they call it.
Yes.
What?
Really? That's actually a thing.
Isn't that another form of racism and another form of prejudice? Take the statistics and then not look at you as an individual.
You're not looking at me as my health. You're not taking me as an individual. This was the experience that I had looking at it, and I thought about it. I thought about when that happened in that moment, I thought about every Black woman who's ever walked into a doctor's office and has been looked at as a statistic. And it's just like, we're already determining your fate. It was so heavy, and I knew immediately, even though he had a great success rate, I was like, yeah, you're not the doctor for me. And in turn, I ended up having a Black OBGYN who literally would come to my house, bring her equipment.
She's very special.
She is very special.
She's a unicorn.
She is a unicorn.
Keep that one.
She would come to my house. You're getting ready to have a baby. You don't need to be sitting in LA traffic for an hour. I can do that. She would come to my house. And through my entire process, I knew she had my back. Even when things didn't go according to plan, she was like, you're still with me. There is no reason to panic. I'm still here for you. And it was a Black woman that made me feel that way.
There's a beautiful project that I would love if we all were part of.
Therapy.
You can pick, you can pick fabrics, colors, write affirmations. If you like to draw rather than write words, however you feel like.
Incredible.
We just pick one and...
Pick one or several, and then we're gonna turn it into a quilt.
Who are we writing it to?
The next group of women that get to sit at a table like this. And hopefully, God willing, their conversation will be completely different.
Exactly.
But as you're writing and as you're thinking that, do you have thoughts about what we want our younger sisters to know, to experience, wishes for them, and also just how to keep the wisdom flowing and how to actually change it in these systems that you talked about?
The first thing that comes to mind is have conversations. Continue to have conversations. I was talking with someone earlier and we were talking about drop off with the kids at school, how you get stuck in a parking lot with a parent, with a mom, you just talking about, yeah, girl, I almost had a breakdown, you too. And it makes you feel better, and then at the same time, my man's calling me like, where are you? I thought she was just jumping again. And I'm like, oh, I'm just talking to so-and-so, mama. And we're having the moments, but having conversations so we can all realize and remember that we're not going at this alone. For me, mental health is so important, and the most important thing is knowing that you're not by yourself. You're not alone in this, no matter what.
I just want to be like safe and feel seen, feel heard. In itself, that message can translate for generations and generations and completely empower the entire maternal side and paternal side as a family unit. Absolutely.
I also think people don't talk about their labor experiences enough. People don't talk about that journey into motherhood enough. I think people sharing their birth journeys is a big moment because that's how we learn. That's how we learn to be better and to also community, right? Create community and empower community.
When I started sharing my story, my mother shared hers, and my aunts started sharing theirs.
Yes.
Good stories, scary stories, whatever. All of a sudden, there was space for all of it.
You made it safe for them to share because they may have come up in a time where you just don't talk about it.
But these are the women that I look up
I know.
to
Yeah.
that
I know.
raised me.
But that's the
so
culture.
to think that you can do that as
And that's
a
the
younger
beautiful thing now is we're teaching them.
Yes.
And they're
Just
able
like
to take it in, and then our kids are teaching us.
Yes, they are.
You know?
They absolutely are.
Your journey is your own.
Yes.
That's right.
And it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You know, we talked about comparison, and I think that like sharing is so important.
Yes.
But let's be clear that like your journey is yours to decide. Should you want to have kids? Should you not want to have kids?
Yes.
Should you want to have a hospital birth? Should you want to have a home birth? Whatever it is, I think really giving yourself permission to say, my journey is my own, and I'm okay with it.
I just want to thank you all so much for being here, for sharing in this conversation. I feel so blessed to be able to just vibe with you guys.
Same.
And bless the hands that prepared this.
Yes,
That's right.
So good.
Thank
That's
you.
right.
Thank
Amazing.
You.
Thank
you. Honored. I took so much away from this conversation. It's just really powerful to be able to share space with so much lived experience, and to be able to share it with the world is impeccable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm taking a lot away from this conversation as well. Because maybe the food.
Thank you. Right?
For sure, 100%. Got you.
No, this was beautiful. Thank you so much.